Welcome, Kim, to the Leaders Who Care series. I think we're going to have some fun on this, and it's probably going to turn into a family affair, apparently, with your son going to be on sometime soon too, and now we'll capitalize on that. But welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No, my pleasure. I think we're going to show everybody why you really are a leader who cares. Because we vetted you thoroughly, and we know you are a leader who cares. So, but let's start with if you could introduce yourself, and I mean not any of the business stuff, but family that you want to tell us about, where you're from originally, where you are now. I always joke with people saying if there's something you've never told anybody ever, you can now reveal it to the world. Is always pretty cool, and I've had some interesting takers on that. So, share with us about who Kim is.
So my name is Kim Normand Dobrin. Normand is actually my maiden name, and I brought it forward with me. I'm originally from a little tiny town outside Johannesburg, South Africa, and then I was raised in Johannesburg. I was a dreamer since I was little. I came from quite a trauma childhood. So the one way that I could cope was by dreaming. So in my family, which was all academics, really successful academics, me being a dreamer, you're such a dreamer, was not exactly a compliment. And it took me through some of the hardest times, and it still is. And now I encourage everyone to dream because everything starts with a dream.
Absolutely.
As I always say, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, not I have a goal. And yet so many people strive for goals, and I strive for a dream.
The famous scholar Kobe Bryant said
Yes.
that everybody should have a dream. It could be the championship for the NBA. It could be this, that. But what he found out is that the dream is actually right now.
That's lovely because it was one day a dream.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have two sisters that are older than me and a half brother. However, my sisters and I did this due to family complications. And my half brother, who lives in a beautiful place on the coast in South Africa, and his wife, my sister-in-law, who is one of God's angels, very special. And they have two lovely, lovely children.
Wow, what makes her one of God's angels?
She is the most incredible educator, and she cares about other people from her heart and soul. She's a really gentle, beautiful human being.
Well, sounds like he lucked out. Um,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely.
You have and you have your own family. You want to share about that?
Absolutely. I've got two really inspiring children, very independent. Like my daughter said, Mum, you raised us with wings. My daughter is independent and highly accomplished. She is now has a career in Singapore and in Asia. She's in sustainability. She's a director of a very large company there. And she has given us a little blessing, who's our first granddaughter.
All right.
And her name is Sloan. So my daughter's name is Jade and Sloan. And my son has been a huge teacher for me. He has faced challenges throughout his life. He is out of the box completely, but I'll never forget one day he said to me, well, you kind of out of the box. And I said, exactly. So he's definitely comes very close to who I am. And he's an integrative specialist. And he's also my business partner.
I
He's
know.
author and he's written beautiful books. And all of our programs are based on his books.
No, it's awesome. And you have a husband as well.
I have a wonderful husband who I was a single mom for 14 years in South Africa, really just focused on growing myself and learning as much as I possibly could to change my reality and my life, and my children, being the best mom that I could be, and then my career. And 14 years into that, I met Alan. He's an expat South African living in Atlanta. And that was an incredible story. We long distance dated for 2 years, and then he proposed. And 8.5 years ago, I moved to Atlanta.
Sweet. Love those stories. They're all good. So we're talking family and we're talking kids, and talking about dreaming. What were you like as a kid and then a teenager? Were you like the lemonade stand entrepreneur, organizing kids for causes, music, reading, sports? What were you like?
It's so interesting. I have done, and I probably will go into it. I've done a lot of work with Holocaust survivors, and there's always something about their childhood that they take forward into their adulthood. And when I
That's
look
exactly
back,
why we asked the question.
and when I look back at to who I was as a child, I was always connected to babies. If you didn't know where I was, in primary school or as a kid of 8, 9, or 10, I was in the park playing with the babies. And so children for me was always a magnet. I love children, and I still do now, and ended up my entire career was making the world a better place for children. I was actually rather extroverted as a kid, believe it or not, because I'm so much the opposite now. Um, I used to sing and dance, and I was always that kid who got the main roles in the school plays. And then I went to a school for art, ballet, and music, and I was into dancing. And then I landed up going to Lee Strasberg in LA on a full scholarship. But unfortunately, because I came from such a difficult background and childhood, that was really never encouraged. And it was really thwarted in a lot of ways. And so I became very introverted. And even now, um, crowds of people don't make me too happy. I'm very good one-on-one. I do crowds because I've had to learn. So they call me a conditioned extrovert. So when I speak to 500 people, I can manage that. But my happy place is really connecting to people in a very close way without, the superficial conversation, but in an authentic way.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that too. Your journey continued or started, if you will, with education, where you had an interesting combo of Harvard International Studies and, like you said, Lee Strasberg Theater. Um, were you, and you talked a little bit about this, touching it, but what were you envisioning when you were doing that?
So when I went to Lee Strasberg, I was into the arts. I wanted to dance. I wanted to act. I'd come out of that space and I loved it. I also didn't have the personality for it. I used to get extremely anxious. I'm not competitive. So you don't want to play a game with me because I really don't care if I win or lose. The impact and the meaning for me is where it all stems from. And I never wanted a career. I wanted to have what I never had. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and the best wife that I could be. And as we say, man plans and God laughs. And obviously, we went with God's plan. And when I had my daughter, when I came back from LA and I had my daughter, I really just wanted to be there full time for her. I just loved being a mom. I loved having my children when they were little and they were tiny, and I wanted to give them the best memories possible. So I went all out for their birthday parties. I did it all myself. I used to make everything and make their cakes and have themes and dress up, and because I wanted to create those memories. And I had a turning point really with Schindler's List.
Hmm.
I walked out of Schindler's List, need I say,
Yeah,
Spielberg
no,
is the
yeah.
genius, and I was sobbing hysterically. And I walked out and I said to everyone who I was with that this is a real humanitarian problem. And if I want my kids raised in a better world, then best I get involved. And I took that and ran with it. And every step that I took from that point on has always been with that intention in mind.
It's interesting how the arts can make us activists, for sure. When they tell stories like that and that are that are quite incredible. Well, you gave me a good segue by saying that. We formed our firm based on the premise that leaders in their organizations will always do better, not only in their business but their life when doing good at the same time. Um, you clearly were an early leader in that with respect to the impact you make with education and knowledge and experiences, and the amazing Shoah Foundation that you were at for a number of years. Can you share how you did land there and the impact of your own experiences on yourself, on South Africa and in Zimbabwe and so on?
So first of all, I was very young. I was just hitting 30. And I think that when we are that age, not only do we have an arrogance, we have a confidence.
Yeah, we do.
And there were just no boundaries. I was going to make this work. And Shoah Foundation was part of that process. So after walking out of there, I started working with the Holocaust survivors in South Africa. And then someone told me about Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation that Spielberg was creating, because when he went to the camps, people would come to him and say, this is my story, you have to tell my story. And he realized that there were movies within each Holocaust survivor. And he couldn't do 50,000 movies, but he could do 50,000 testimonies. So we had coordinators in every country to collect that. And it's the largest oral history project in the world. We started out at DreamWorks, which was really fun. We had our own little caravans, and we were young and we were idealistic, and we had worked through the night, and we just had this mission, to reach those 50,000 testimonies, to hold history.
Yeah.
Because we knew that when the Holocaust survivors left us, we wouldn't have those stories. So we were on this mission, and it was anyone who was under the Nazi regime from 33 to 45. So whether you were a gypsy, homosexual, liberator, righteous Gentile, and obviously Jews, we went out and we were collecting this. And Shoah Foundation side, they were creating technology that is way more advanced than any of Spielberg's movies. So we were in the most incredible inspirational space that was super exciting. And I got to travel to America twice a year and meet people from around the world. And we became this family, which was remarkable and humbling at the same time. And through that process, I also connected with Nelson Mandela, who is the epitome of being humble and the epitome of being driven to make the world a better place. And between all of that, I started growing within myself, because I turned inwards and I started asking myself the questions: why am I doing this work? How do I align to it? How do I relate to it? And then the doors started opening, and I literally walked through the open doors. And by the time I looked back, I had this incredible resume that I didn't really strategize to create, and yet was so grateful that I have had opportunities that have made my life so rich with meaning. And one major milestone for me in this whole journey was when I was 19 years old in LA. I was crossing the road. I had bought Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on a Limb.
Right.
And I walked out of the bookstore, which was a very famous bookstore in LA, and a bus came whizzing past me. And I jumped back and I thought to myself, if that had hit me, would I be happy with my life up to now? And the answer was no. And from that point on, I promised myself that every single day I would use to the fullest to fill my life with meaning.
Yeah,
And,
go ahead.
and so that's what I've really tried to do on all levels, which means I'm incredibly committed to my own self-growth. I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 20 years, So yes, that was the start of it all.
And it goes back to the dream is now to some degree, right?
Exactly. The dream is now. And you know, the opportunity to meet people who have been incredible role models in our world, who have shifted the needle, like Nelson Mandela, like Steven Spielberg, and recognizing that they've had no attitude. Neither one of them, when I met them and spoke to them, and you know, they don't have an arrogance. And that for me was incredibly important, because none of us, why be arrogant? None of us are so great to have an attitude. You know, it's humbling every single day. Life humbles us, right?
Yeah, we talk a lot about that, and we've been using the word personal a lot. Like health is personal, life is personal, everything is personal, so that you don't take anything for granted. You don't, like, if you hear on the news only 2 people died today, you take that personally. That's a lot of people. It's not just, oh, we're good, only 2 people this time, and stuff like
And those people have families and they had
that.
lives.
That's the point of taking it personal. Like, who else got affected in this and that, and then which
Yes.
should create more action and more and more humility, et cetera, et cetera. You obviously have a passion and commitment to children and youth, which I love because I do too. Um, and obviously your work at Shoah opened other opportunities with the Apartheid Museum, Human Rights Commission, the Tolerance Foundation, and Tomorrow Trust. Just small little things that you did there. And what experiences can you share? You started sharing some that really maybe really stood out for you that impacted children.
So I think to have some kind of a structure in my own head, I'll go through each one of those and talk about a lesson that I learned, if you don't mind, from
Well,
each
it's only
one.
as they say, it's only a 2-hour show, so sure.
So with Shoah Foundation, I was working with Holocaust survivors who at that stage were adults, obviously, but they had gone through the worst kind of strategized machine-like genocide as children. And that spoke to me as what a child has gone through. And yet they lived life. And I learned the tenacity of the human spirit. And I learned the resiliency of a human spirit. And fortunately or unfortunately, my reference and my point of reference being Holocaust, when I went through something in my life, I would look and go, well, if they could have gone through that, then I can get through this. And so it really inspired me through my darkest times. I learned so much from them. Their strength was just remarkable, as to how they lived life after so much trauma. And then, the Human Rights Commission for Education, I'll never forget, the one meeting was actually on Robben Island, right where obviously Nelson Mandela was locked up for 27 years and many others. And looking at their cells and seeing what they created, he became a lawyer on the island, and he kept failing his exams and he kept redoing his exams. And that showed me that life isn't black and white. And what we think is success isn't always what success actually is.
Right.
That what we think is failure is actually us simply growing and creating something new. And what he became after leaving Robben Island in this tiny little cell is remarkable. So always to have that dream moving us forward is so important. Doesn't matter what the age is or what we've gone through. We always have the ability to make a positive impact, whatever that may be, and however small or large that may be.
Yeah, enough is enough. Not in a good way. Not enough is enough, but where you are doing enough and it is good, and don't be depressed about it and whatnot, even if it's a little thing or a big thing. You remind me of it may be my favorite book ever, that one by Viktor Frankl, where Man's Search for
And search
Meaning.
for meaning.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Just to have that kind of perspective going through what he did, is just remarkable, which shows that we've got so much more to learn about ourselves. It's never ending. So then there was Nelson Mandela, who made me cry every time he walked into a room or when I walked into a room. And I've got a story that I always tell about children. So we had reached 50,000 testimonies. Spielberg gave us a mandate of doing 50,000 testimonies around the world. And then he gave us a massive big gala dinner to celebrate that in LA. And 3 days before I was leaving, I get a call from the office in LA to say, we've chosen 5 role models that we'd like to give a message to Spielberg. Please, will you do one for him with Nelson Mandela? And I said, well, I don't just arrive at his house and go, please, can we video you? And so he said, I know you can do it. So I called my contact, and he called me back. He goes, Madiba, we called him Madiba. Madiba is waiting for you at his house. And I said, but I don't have my videographer. He's in Pretoria. So he said, well, get there anyway, because he's waiting for you. I had to pick up my daughter from school. I picked up Jade, and it was quite remarkable because she gets in the car. She was 10 years old. And I say to her, JD, Madiba's waiting for us at his house. I can't drop you at home. It's just, I don't have the time. You're going to have to come with me. So she looks at me, the innocence of a 10-year-old, and she goes, I want you to know I am only doing this for you. And now we all laugh about it. And then we arrived at his house. And need I say, it was an absolute treat because, sorry, I have to close this door. I'm sorry to do
That's
this.
all right. Go ahead. As we're waiting for the rest
People
of
have
the
walked
Nelson
in and they're
Mandela.
making a noise.
That's all right. We didn't hear it.
So we arrived at his house, and very unusual, he was all by himself. He had no one around him. And we get to the door, and I say, Madiba, I'm so sorry, I don't have a videographer. He goes, Kim, don't worry, you'll come back tomorrow. Come inside and have some tea. So we go inside, and obviously I had rooibos tea. I'm South African. And it was the best cup of rooibos tea I've ever had, because for an hour he sat on the couch talking to Jade, a 10-year-old, and didn't say one word to me. He had an entire hour conversation with a little girl, and then we left, and I came back and I filmed the message for Spielberg that I took with me to LA.
Too bad you didn't have a videographer to just film that.
And Madiba was known as the children's president. And in that moment, he showed me that that is exactly what he was. And fast forward, I go to LA, and I just happened to be standing. It wasn't planned at all, but I was standing right behind Spielberg's chair. We were chatting, and next minute on the screen comes Madiba. And I look at Spielberg and I say to him, this is a gift from South Africa. It was such synchronicity that I happened to have been standing there, and it comes on. So, it's moments like that that are so incredibly exhilarating to have as part of your memory bank, is just super, super special. So there was that. Then moving into Tolerance Foundation. Tolerance Foundation, we used history to teach life skills, social emotional learning to over 70,000 kids in South Africa. So we used apartheid, Holocaust, Rwanda, Kosovo, and we'd hone the lessons down into the kids' lives. So what is tolerance? What is choice, responsibility, consequence? And it was incredible to have those conversations with kids. And then we'd run national competitions and fly over to Amsterdam and follow Anne Frank's footsteps. And we didn't do it in the touristy way. We'd go to her Montessori school and sit at her desk. We would go to the Anne Frank house after hours, so there were no tourists there, and they would open the Otto Frank study that is normally closed, and you could smell the history in it. So that in itself was incredible. And then Tomorrow Trust. Tomorrow Trust, my heart for these kids, they were all orphan and vulnerable children affected by HIV/AIDS. And the only way for me to break that cycle was through education, to give them an opportunity. They've got no role models. They come from poverty, which Americans generally don't understand. When we say there's no food at home, there's no food at home. There are
Right.
no food banks to go to, you know. There are no charities that are handing out, like America is so brilliant at doing that. There is nothing. And so how do you give them their own power and sense of self-reliability, self-responsibility? And that's through education. But it's not only the academic. That will never succeed if you don't have the emotional side of it. And so as I started it with that in mind, through all the lessons that I'd learned. And so once a month with all the university kids, I would do a full day course, really, of discovering yourself, learning all, they call it soft skills, but it's actually hard skills because you need that to succeed in life. And then for the little ones, right from 5 years all the way through to grade 12, it was integrated within their curriculum, and we'd see them every Saturday and every school holiday. Very successful. There are now over 900 alumni who are doctors and lawyers and accountants and
No, I
doing
love that.
incredible things in their lives. And I stepped down from that in 2018. And all my work has always been mile deep, inch wide, really deep interventions, long-term interventions. And I always wanted to do something mile wide and inch deep. And Brent,
I thought you didn't want the big crowds. I thought you wanted the other one.
but I want to touch all the kids, you know,
Mhm.
that's the joy, is
I
to
know.
touch as
I
many
know.
kids as we can. And so Brent, my son, called me. He's an integrative specialist. And he called me when he was doing his yoga teaching in Bali. And he said, Mom, there's one common denominator. Doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, how wealthy or how poor you are. And that's fear and anxiety. It stops potential and it stops opportunity. And we have to do something about it. So he wrote a story and sent it to me. We had 18 full-time staff at Tomorrow Trust and 95 teachers. They read it, they fell in love with it. And that was the start of Freddie's journey, who you see behind me.
Yes.
and, um, and everything that we do at Free the Mind Co. is built on Brent's books. It's from there.
It's so interesting. He just accepted an invite while you were on the phone.
Oh, really?
Of all the times he would do it, he does it right now.
Synchronicity.
There, yeah, exactly. It's those are all personal experiences, and it's like you said, it all threads back from even when you were a kid, how these things just open up, and you have to take the opportunity, and they're fantastic. And I love the fact that he spoke to your daughter for an hour, because there's so much purity and sincerity and ideas and whatnot from the young people that I even talk to by the way, we don't use the term soft skills anymore. We call that human intelligence instead of soft skills now, to go along with the AI, artificial intelligence. So there's another thing there, but um, share a little bit about Free the Mind Company, and what's the mission. And I know it's freeing Freddie the Dreamweaver, but briefly just share a little bit more about that so people know what you do there.
So Free the Mind Co., it's actually not company. The
Okay.
CO stands for all the CO words like collaboration, coordination, and there's so
Okay.
many of them that are just incredible. So we call it Free the Mind Co., because when you free your mind, you're open to opportunity and possibility. And what we do with this is we give the skills and tools in a beautiful literacy-based way with Brent's books, all about the skills and tools that we need on an emotional level in order to navigate life, to be healthy and meaningful for kids. So we really focus, the online programs are from 5 to 12 years old. Then we've got family programs as well. And then we do a lot of personal development for educators. And we're now working globally. So we're spreading. And, you know, we would love this translated into so many different languages. So we're doing, it's now being translated as we speak and built out for the Ukrainian kids. We've been accredited in Ukraine by the government there because the children are really needing this. So it gives the skills and tools every day. So it's very developmental instead of crisis aimed. You want the children to know what to do before that. So when they do hit a challenge, they've got all of those skills already in their toolkit. We're working in Israel. We're busy looking right now for sponsors to translate that. We've got a pilot going in Greece and Lithuania. And so, yes, we look for partnerships. We look for collaboration because we want to reach as many kids as possible. We're working in Australia. One of my dreams is to be in all the hospitals for the kids because they're in bed. They get 2 to 3 hours of schooling a week. And so they're bored, they're anxious, they're afraid, they're disconnected. And so this gives them all of that joy and that wonder, as well as, you know, something really, really valuable. So we've got a big dream. We've got a very big dream that we're driving towards. We're building out the second program right now, which is all about, so the first one is understanding and normalizing your emotions. What do they look like? Giving you the language to express it. It's positive relationship building. It's building empathy. What are dreams? Executive functioning skills. The second one is all about conflict resolution and what are your strengths and how do you build that strength within you as well as everyone else? And how, as a community, do we hold each other to deliver like a bee in a hive, how every bee knows what to do, and together we make honey. So it's very beautiful.
And you're the queen bee, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. We're very much a team. We've got the most incredible team.
But there in the beehive, there is the queen that's in charge. So, but everybody has to call you honey or something like that. You know, well, you know, one thing we say in LA is that we have to leave them wanting more so we can do a sequel. I think we got some sequels ahead of us, but first of all, you know, congrats because the children are the whole ball game for legacy and for future and everything. And we do a lot with Leaders Who Care, and we talk about the future leaders who care. What I'm finding out is we're meeting a lot of present future leaders who care. They're not waiting for the future to be leaders who care. They're doing it now. And with programs like you've got, it's fantastic. And you know, spoke to your son about visualization that I was taught as a young kid before anything was going on by a teacher and a sports coach. Taught me how to visualize before playing the game, and then he taught me how to do it before doing a test and stuff like that. And it's really because we talked about meditation too, and it's a sort of a meditation for me in a way to visualize in that respect. And I kind of got that a little bit about when you're saying you're preparing the kids, you know, for what's going to happen, what's going to happen. It's kind of what we do with visualization.
Visualization is so powerful. I mean, every athlete uses it.
Exactly.
You know, Biles coming out of this Olympics said that the visualization saved her.
Totally. Yeah, it's fantastic stuff, which I know we'll talk a lot more about because I love your accent. And so, the last thing I want to ask you though is a client of mine told me in 2021, he said, you know, the year 2020 was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought, what an interesting thing to say. And if you look now, for a lot of people, we feel like the pandemic was yesterday and also years ago at the same time. And it's already the end of 2024. Can you share what you're most grateful for and also what you're most hopeful for?
Such a lovely question that. COVID for me was difficult and the biggest gift ever. So I had recently immigrated. So not seeing my children was obviously very, very difficult. The gift was that you couldn't get on a plane and go anywhere. So it helped me settle. It gave me peace and grounding where I could just be alone because remember, we didn't want to be with anyone. So it was very much alone time and it helped me tap into a part of myself that I didn't have the time before to do. So I reacquainted myself with who I was and what I wanted to do. And that was such a gift. It was also a gift to our business and our organization, because we could really spend some very important time. And we went online that we weren't planning to do. It was an in-classroom curriculum. And now we're working around the world, which is a blessing.
Yeah.
I go to sleep every single night with a practice where I close my eyes and I go through my day from the morning through to the evening about what was positive and what I'm grateful for. Even when it's a really shitty day, there's always something. And so I'm very mindful of being conscious about what am I grateful for every single day, because that really shifts the focus and the energy as to what are challenges, because we've all got challenges.
Sure.
So I'm feeling very grateful right now that I do the work that I love. I've got two incredible children that someone said to me, you always want to get to a time when your children are adults that you could be friends with them if that was the case. And I would want to be friends with my kids because I think they are remarkable human beings. They're authentic, they're real, they're solid. And that makes me super proud of who they are. I'm blessed with a wonderful marriage. And now we've got a little munchkin in our lives who brings joy. I wait for her to wake up every day so I can FaceTime her. And I feel blessed that I can get on a plane and go to where they are and visit them and see them. And that we've got this wonderful relationship where we're working together to, to have create these beautiful memories.
No, that's fantastic. Well, I'm grateful for a new friend for sure,
Yes.
and that you are a leader who cares, and I think the future looks bright just in that. So thank you for being on the series and sharing.
Thanks so much, Mark. And let's all spread the kindness, glitter, or whatever you want to say, good vibes, and be caring leaders. I think leaders that care is so important, to have that emotional intelligence instead of smashing people down, but bring them up, especially in the corporate world. It's such a harsh environment, and it's good to build people up.
And it's actually good for business when it
It
happens.
is. And
So,
it's good to keep them
yeah,
for
100%.
retention.
People do like people that care about them,
Of course.
all the time.
Everyone likes to work in a happy, caring environment.